The morning air was cold and clean in the mountains. Jiwoo stood in her practice area, her bow raised toward the wooden target 50 meters away. She breathed slowly, feeling the weight of the arrow between her fingers. This was her favorite time of day, before the sun fully rose and the world woke up. Behind her, sitting on a flat rock, Taeyang watched with dark eyes. The honey badger made a small chittering sound. Jiwoo smiled without looking back. 3 years together, and she could understand his moods perfectly. He was happy this morning. Safe. Content. She released the arrow. It flew straight and true, hitting the center of the target with a solid thunk. Taeyang chirped his approval. Jiwoo lowered her bow and walked toward the target to collect her arrows. This was her life now. Simple, quiet, away from the noise and pain of her past. 5 years ago, Jiwoo had been a soldier. She had a team, friends, a purpose. Then came the training accident, an explosion that killed everyone but her. The guilt had been crushing. She left the military, left the city, left everything. She came to these mountains to work as a wildlife ranger. Here she could breathe. Here she could forget. Taeyang had arrived 2 years into her isolation. Illegal animal traders had captured him, planning to sell him overseas. Jiwoo had intercepted them during a patrol. She freed all their animals, but Taeyang refused to leave. The fierce little creature followed her home and never left. She named him after the sun because nothing could stop him, just like nothing could stop the sun from rising. Jiwoo pulled her arrows from the target. The sunrise painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful, peaceful, perfect. Then the sky tore open. At first, Jiwoo thought it was lightning. Bright lines of light cracked across the morning sky. But there was no thunder, no clouds, just light growing brighter and brighter. Taeyang started growling, a sound she had never heard from him before. A warning sound. The light became shapes, huge shapes, ships, dozens of them, descending through the atmosphere like falling stars. They were massive, each one the size of a city building. They moved with purpose, spreading out across the sky in formation. Jiwoo's phone rang. She grabbed it from her pocket. Her brother's name flashed on the screen. Hyun Ki. He worked at the National Space Monitoring Facility in Seoul. Jiwoo. His voice was panicked, breathless. Listen to me carefully. They're everywhere, every continent. These are not our ships. They're... What are you talking about? Jiwoo asked, but her eyes were fixed on the sky. She already knew the answer. Aliens, an invasion. The military is mobilizing, but... Explosions echoed through the phone. Hyun Ki shouted something she couldn't understand. Jiwoo, you need to get out of there. Get to Seoul. Get to... The line went dead. Jiwoo tried calling back. Nothing. No signal. She looked at her phone, then at the sky. The ships were lower now. She could see details on their hulls, strange symbols, weapon ports, lights that pulsed with an otherworldly glow. One of the ships broke away from the formation. It was heading toward her valley, toward her station. Jiwoo grabbed Taeyang and ran inside her cabin. She locked the door, knowing how useless that was. What could a lock do against beings who could cross space? Through her window, she watched the ship slow and hover above the valley floor. Parts of its hull opened. Small pods dropped out, falling toward the ground. When they hit, they opened like flowers. Things stepped out. Creatures. Aliens. They were tall, maybe 3 meters high. Their bodies looked like a nightmare mixture of insect and machine. Hard shells covered their torsos. Their limbs were long and jointed in too many places. Their heads were angular, with multiple eyes that glowed with a cold blue light. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. Jiwoo counted 12 of them. They moved through the valley in a pattern, scanning everything with devices mounted on their arms. They were searching, cataloging, taking inventory of Earth like it was a warehouse. She had a choice, run or hide. Every instinct from her military training screamed at her to assess and adapt. She knew these mountains better than anyone. The caves, the trails, the hidden paths. She could disappear if she moved now. But then 3 of the aliens changed direction. They were heading toward her station. toward her home. Jiwoo grabbed her emergency pack. She pulled out her compound bow and her special arrows, the ones designed for tranquilizing bears and mountain lions. She grabbed her climbing gear and supplies. Taeyang stayed close to her leg, silent now, tense. She moved to the hidden basement she had discovered when she first arrived. It was an old storage space, cold and dark. She activated the security cameras on her tablet. 4 small screens showed different angles of her station. She watched as the aliens approached. They scanned the building. One of them tilted its head, analyzing data. It made a sound, a series of clicks and hums. The others responded. They knew she was inside. They knew something living was here. The door exploded inward. The aliens entered with weapons raised. They moved through her home quickly, efficiently. They scanned every room. One of them found her animal rescue area, the large room where she kept injured animals until they could be released. There were 5 animals in recovery, 2 birds with broken wings, a young deer with a leg injury, a fox recovering from poisoning, a bear cub she had found orphaned. The alien approached them with a device. It activated something on its arm, and containers materialized around each animal. They were being taken, harvested. Something broke inside Jiwoo. These creatures had invaded her world, destroyed her peace, threatened her brother. And now they were taking innocent animals like they owned them, like Earth was theirs to plunder. She grabbed her bow. Taeyang looked at her with understanding. He knew what was coming. She emerged from the basement entrance, arrow already knocked. The alien with the animals didn't hear her. It was focused on its task. Jiwoo aimed for the neck joint where the armor seemed thinner. She released. The arrow flew silent and fast. It punched through the weak point and buried itself deep. The tranquilizer compound, designed to drop a 500-kilogram bear, entered the alien system. The creature staggered. Its systems went haywire. Lights flickered across its armor. It made a horrible screeching sound and collapsed. The containers around the animals deactivated. They were free. The other 2 aliens spun toward her, raising their weapons. Jiwoo rolled behind cover as energy bolts scorched the wall where she had been standing. Taeyang didn't wait. The honey badger launched himself at the nearest alien with a furious snarl. He was small, barely 10 kilograms. But honey badgers were pound for pound one of the most ferocious animals on Earth. Taeyang went for the joints. In the alien's legs, his claws and teeth finding purchase in the flexible armor connections. The alien tried to shake him off, but Taeyang held on, tearing and biting with savage determination. Jiwoo fired again. Another arrow, another alien neck joint. The creature fell. The 3rd alien finally shook Taeyang loose and aimed at the honey badger. Jiwoo didn't think. She fired 3 arrows in rapid succession. One hit the alien's weapon arm. One hit its chest plate, cracking it. The 3rd found the damaged area and punched through. Silence fell. 3 aliens lay dead or dying. Jiwoo stood. In her destroyed home, bow still raised, breathing hard. Taeyang limped back to her side, unhurt but tired. She reached down and touched his head gently. "Good boy," she whispered. Then she heard it. More of them. Outside. The dying alien had sent a signal. Reinforcements were coming. She had maybe minutes. Before this place became a battlefield she couldn't win. Jiwoo grabbed her pack and ran. Taeyang followed. They slipped out the back entrance and into the forest. Behind them, more aliens arrived at her station. She heard their clicking communication, their weapons charging. They would search for her. Hunter. Good, she thought. Let them come into her mountains. Let them try to find her in terrain she had walked for 3 years. She had killed 3 of them with a bow and a honey badger. She had learned something important. They could bleed. They could die. And if they could die, they could be beaten. The war had found Jiwoo in her mountain refuge. She had wanted peace, but peace was gone. Now there was only survival, only resistance. She disappeared into the forest with Taeyang, becoming a ghost among the trees. Behind her, the aliens searched. They would keep searching, and Jiwoo would keep killing them, 1 arrow at a time, until they left her world or she ran out of arrows. Either way, she would not yield. Not her mountains, not her animals, not her Earth. The invasion had begun, and so had the resistance. 3 weeks had passed since the invasion began. Jiwoo had become a shadow in the mountains, moving silently through forests and caves. Taeyang stayed close, his senses sharp and alert. Together they had killed 17 aliens. Each one taught her something new. She learned their patrol patterns. The aliens moved in groups of 3 or 4, always in the same formations. They scanned constantly, their technology searching for heat signatures and movement. But they never looked up. Jiwoo used that weakness, attacking from trees and cliff edges. She learned their weak points. The neck joints were best, but the spots where their legs connected to their bodies worked too. The knee joints could be damaged, making them slow. Their weapons were attached to their arms, so hitting those connections disabled them. Most importantly, she learned about the tranquilizer. The compound she used for bears and mountain lions was poison to the aliens. Something in their biology couldn't process it. It caused their systems to fail, lights flickering out as they collapsed. She had started making more arrows with different animal tranquilizers. Each one was deadly to them. Jiwoo also modified other arrows. She found an abandoned military supply cache and took thermite charges. She attached them to arrow tips. These could burn through alien armor. She created explosive arrows from old grenades. She even made arrows with small EMP devices that disrupted their electronic systems. Her quiver was now a deadly arsenal, and she had become very good at using it. On the 22nd day, Jiwoo was tracking an alien patrol when she heard other sounds. Human sounds. Footsteps trying to be quiet but not quite succeeding. Voices in hushed whispers. She signaled Taeyang to stay hidden and moved closer. 6 people were setting up an ambush. They had guns, explosives, and determination on their faces. One woman was clearly the leader, giving quiet orders to the others. She was in her 30s with short hair and scars on her face. She moved like a soldier. Jiwoo watched them position themselves. They were waiting for the same patrol she was hunting. Their plan was simple but loud. When the aliens came through, they would attack with everything they had. It might work, but it would also bring reinforcements quickly. The aliens appeared, moving down the trail. Jiwoo saw one of the humans getting nervous, finger tight on the trigger. She made a decision. She moved from her hiding spot and stepped into view of the leader. The woman spun, raising her rifle. Jiwoo held up one hand, the other holding her bow down. She pointed at the aliens, then at her own position in the trees. She made a gesture. "Wait." The woman stared at her, confused but curious. She had heard stories about someone hunting aliens in these mountains. The ghost archer. Could this be her? Jiwoo climbed back into the trees silently. She positioned herself above the trail. The woman seemed to understand. She signaled her people to hold fire. They waited. The 4 aliens walked into the killing zone. Jiwoo released her first arrow. It took the lead alien in the neck joint before it could react. The creature fell silently. The second arrow hit another alien's weapon arm, disabling it. The third arrow struck a knee joint, dropping the alien to the ground. The 4th alien raised its weapon to fire at her position. Then Taeyang appeared from the brush, launching himself at the creature's legs. The alien stumbled. Jiwoo's 4th arrow took it in the chest plate, cracking through with a thermite tip that burned into its body. 4 aliens dead in less than 15 seconds. Complete silence. No alarms, no backup signals. The resistance fighters stared in shock. The woman lowered her rifle and walked to where Jiwoo dropped down from her tree. "You're her," the woman said. "The archer everyone is talking about," Jiwoo nodded. Taeyang came to her side, and the woman's eyes widened at seeing the honey badger. "I'm Da-un," the woman said. "Former Special Forces. I'm leading a resistance cell. We have about 30 people." She looked at the dead aliens. "But nothing we've done has been this clean." "How?" Jiwoo explained. She showed Da-un the different arrows, explained the tranquilizer discovery, pointed out the alien weak points. She shared everything she had learned. Da-un listened carefully, her tactical mind processing each piece of information. "The military has been throwing tanks and missiles at them," Da-un said. "Some success, but heavy casualties. We've been using hit-and-run tactics with conventional weapons. But this..." She looked at Jiwoo's bow. "This is different, quieter, more effective." Da-un told Jiwoo about the bigger picture. The aliens controlled most major cities. Millions of people were dead or captured, but the invasion had stalled. Humanity was fighting back harder than the aliens expected. Every piece of ground cost them. Every advance took time. The quick victory they wanted was not happening. "We're losing," Da-un admitted, "but slowly." And that means something. It means we can fight. We can resist. She looked at Jiwoo directly. We could use someone like you, someone who knows how to hurt them. Among Daeun's group was a young man named Minho. He was maybe 17, thin and nervous. He had survived when his village was destroyed. Daeun had found him hiding in the ruins and brought him into her cell. He was scared but determined not to abandon his home. Minho was fascinated by Jiwoo's bow. He asked if he could try. Jiwoo let him. His first shots were clumsy, but his hands were steady. He had potential. She offered to teach him. His face lit up with hope. Over the next week, Jiwoo trained Daeun's people. Not everyone could use a bow well, but everyone could learn to move quietly. She taught them tracking, camouflage, and how to read alien behavior. She taught them patience, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Minho proved to be her best student. He practiced every spare moment. His youth gave him flexibility and quick reflexes. Within days, he could hit targets consistently. Within 2 weeks, he killed his first alien with a tranquilizer arrow. He cried afterward, shaking with the reality of what he had done. Jiwoo understood. She had been there too. Daeun provided resources in exchange. She had contact with other resistance cells, access to supply caches, and intelligence about alien movements. She shared everything freely. The resistance was growing stronger through cooperation. But someone was paying attention to Jiwoo's kills. In an alien command ship orbiting Earth, a commander named Velthar reviewed combat footage. He saw the same pattern in multiple locations. Silent kills, primitive weapons, no survivors to report what happened. Something was hunting his soldiers in the mountains. Velthar became obsessed. How were primitive humans killing his advanced warriors? He studied every death, every pattern. He realized it was one person or maybe a small team. Someone with military training using ancient weapons. It was humiliating, but also fascinating. He set a trap. His soldiers intercepted a resistance communication and decoded it. Then they sent their own message on that channel. Designed to bait his prey, they mentioned a research facility where humans were being held. They specifically mentioned a name. Hyun-Ki Jiwoo was listening to resistance communications when she heard it. Her brother's name. Her heart stopped. She called Daeun immediately. It's a trap, Daeun said immediately. It has to be. They want you to come. I know, Jiwoo said. But what if it's real? What if Hyun-Ki is really there? They argued for an hour. Daeun insisted it was too dangerous. Jiwoo insisted she had to check. Finally, they compromised. They would do reconnaissance only. Get close, observe, and gather information. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Jiwoo, Daeun, Minho, and 3 other fighters approached the facility 2 nights later. It was a former military base now converted for alien use. Guards patrolled the perimeter. Sensors swept the area constantly. It looked heavily defended, but through her binoculars, Jiwoo saw the prisoner wing, and there, through a window, she saw him. Hyun-Ki, thinner, bruised but alive. Her brother was really there. We need to pull back, Daeun whispered. Plan this properly. We can't just... Alarms screamed to life. Lights flooded the area. They had been detected. Velthar's trap had sprung. Aliens poured out of the facility, surrounding their position. Run! Daeun shouted. Everyone scatter. Jiwoo ran with Taeyang and Minho. Behind them, Daeun laid down covering fire, her rifle blazing. She was buying them time to escape. Jiwoo looked back and saw aliens closing in on Daeun's position. Keep going, Daeun screamed. Don't stop. Jiwoo wanted to turn back. Wanted to help. But Minho was pulling her forward and Taeyang was urging her on. She could hear Daeun firing until the sound stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was terrible. They made it back to their camp. 3 fighters had escaped. 3 were missing, including Daeun. Jiwoo sat in the dark, her hands shaking. She had failed. Her decision to check on her brother had led them into a trap. Now Daeun was captured or dead, and Hyun-Ki was still imprisoned. Minho sat beside her, his face pale. The other survivors were silent, processing their losses. Taeyang pressed against Jiwoo's leg, offering what comfort he could. Jiwoo made a decision. She would go back. She would rescue them both, Daeun and Hyun-Ki. It was probably suicide. The facility was too well defended. But she had started this. She would finish it. I'm going with you, Minho said quietly. Jiwoo looked at the young man. He was terrified but resolute. She nodded. Whatever happened next, she wouldn't be alone. The war had taken much from her, but it had also given her something. Jiwoo spent 3 days planning. She studied the facility from every angle, watching patrol patterns and shift changes. She learned when guards were most alert and when they grew lazy. She found the weak points in their security. Most importantly, she waited. Patience was her weapon as much as her bow. On the second day, an old man arrived at her camp. He was in his 50s with steady hands and calm eyes. He introduced himself as Jae Sung, a former Olympic archer who had joined the resistance. He had heard stories about the mountain archer and came to help. "I've been teaching traditional Korean archery for 30 years, Jae Sung said. "I thought maybe I could teach you something, or learn something." "Either way, I can help," Jiwoo welcomed him. Jae Sung brought knowledge of ancient techniques, ways of making arrows that had been used for centuries. He showed her how to craft arrows using modern materials with traditional designs. He taught her about breathing, focus, and the spiritual connection between archer and target. "There is something called jung in Korean archery," Jae Sung explained. "It means a kind of rightness, a perfect connection. When you have jung, your arrow knows where to go. You don't aim anymore. You simply release and the arrow finds its mark." Jiwoo practiced with him. She found that his teachings made her faster, more accurate. Her shots became instinctive. She stopped thinking and started feeling. Taeyang watched these practice sessions with interest, as if he understood something important was happening. Word of Jiwoo's planned rescue spread through resistance channels. Volunteers arrived. Some were experienced fighters. Others were ordinary people who wanted to help. Within a week, she had 20 people willing to follow her into what everyone knew was probably a suicide mission. Jiwoo trained them all in archery basics. Not everyone became good, but everyone learned to shoot well enough to be useful. More importantly, she taught them to move silently, to work as a team, to trust each other. Minho helped with the training, his confidence growing each day. Inside the facility, Daeun was in a cell. Velthar interrogated her daily, trying to understand human resistance. He wanted to know about the mountain archer specifically. Who was she? How had she killed so many of his soldiers? What made her so effective? Daeun told him nothing. She endured the pain and stayed silent. But she wasn't alone. In the next cell was Dr. Yuna, a scientist who had been captured early in the invasion. The aliens forced her to study human biology, trying to understand how humans could fight so fiercely. Dr. Yuna had discovered something important during her forced research. The aliens had a biological network connecting them, like a hive mind. It wasn't total control, but it helped them coordinate. The network had relay nodes, special aliens who amplified the signals. If enough relay nodes were destroyed at once, entire units would become confused and disoriented. She whispered this information to Daeun through the wall between their cells. Daeun understood immediately how valuable this was. If Jiwoo came for them, this information could change everything. Jiwoo's plan was ambitious. She would create multiple distractions across the region, forcing Velthar to split his forces. Other resistance cells agreed to help, launching attacks at the same time. When the facility was at minimum guard strength, Jiwoo's team would infiltrate through an underground water system that connected to the base's old sewage tunnels. The night of the operation was moonless and cold. Across the mountain region, resistance fighters attacked alien positions. Explosions lit up the sky. Velthar, furious at the coordinated assaults, sent most of his garrison to respond. Just as Jiwoo predicted, Jiwoo led her team into the water tunnel. The passage was tight and dark, water flowing past their legs. Taeyang scouted ahead, his senses alert for danger. They emerged inside the facility's lowest level, in an old maintenance area that had been forgotten. Moving in complete silence, they climbed to the upper levels. Guards stood at key positions. Jiwoo's arrows took them down one by one, the tranquilizer compound killing them silently. Her team moved like shadows, invisible and deadly. They reached the prisoner wing. Jiwoo found Hyun-ki first. He was in a medical examination room, weak but conscious. When he saw his sister, tears ran down his face. They embraced briefly, no words needed. She cut his restraints and helped him stand. Daeun was in a high-security cell, so was Dr. Yuna. Jae Sung worked on the electronic lock while Jiwoo stood guard. The door opened. Daeun stumbled out, bruised and exhausted but alive. Dr. Yuna followed. "We need to destroy my research," Dr. Yuna said immediately. "They've been using my work to study humans. I won't let them have it. No time." Jiwoo said. We need to leave now. I'm not leaving without destroying it, Dr. Yuna insisted. She told them about the hive network and the relay nodes. This information is worth more than my life. But so is making sure they can't use what I learned against humanity. Dayun made the decision. Minho, take the rescued prisoners back through the tunnel. Jiwoo, Jae-sung, and I will help Dr. Yuna destroy her research. Then we follow, alarms screamed. Red lights flooded the corridors. Velthar had returned. He had anticipated that Jiwoo might attack during the distractions. He set his own trap within her plan. The facility went into lockdown. Blast doors sealed. They were trapped. Change of plans. Dayun shouted. Everyone to the prisoner wing. We hold them there. Jiwoo, Jae-sung, and Da-eun positioned themselves in the corridor leading to the prisoner wing. It was narrow with limited angles of approach. A perfect kill zone. Behind them, the others barricaded themselves in the wing with the rescued prisoners. Aliens came in waves. Jiwoo and Jae-sung fired arrow after arrow, each shot finding its mark. The corridor became littered with alien bodies. Dayun used her rifle, conserving ammunition but making each shot count. Taeyang darted among the fallen enemies, finishing wounded ones with savage efficiency. They held for 20 minutes. 20 minutes of continuous combat. Jiwoo's arms burned with fatigue. Her quiver was nearly empty. Jae-sung's breath came in gasps, but his hands stayed steady. Taeyang reloaded her last magazine. Then Velthar himself appeared, wearing heavy combat armor. He was larger than the other aliens. His armor covered in battle markings. He carried a plasma weapon that glowed with deadly energy. The Mountain Phantom, Velthar said in surprisingly clear Korean. His voice came through a translator. I have studied you, hunted you, and now finally I have you. You don't have me yet, Jiwoo replied. Surrender. I will keep you as a specimen. Study what makes you so effective. This is the best offer you will receive. Otherwise you die here with nothing accomplished. Jiwoo's response was an arrow aimed at his faceplate. It struck hard, cracking the material but not penetrating. Velthar laughed, raising his weapon to fire. Taeyang launched himself from the shadows. The honey badger was small but fearless, going straight for Velthar's leg joints where the armor was thinner. His claws found purchase, tearing at the flexible material. Velthar tried to shake him off, distracted. Jiwoo fired again, a thermite arrow this time. It struck the damaged faceplate and burned through, finding the seal at Velthar's neck. The alien commander staggered, his armor melting. He fell to his knees. With his last strength, Velthar activated his communication device. To all Vex forces, he transmitted. Humans are not primitives. They are apex survivors. Never underestimate them. Never, he died. His message transmitted across the alien network, reaching commanders across Earth and in orbit. Many dismissed it as the rambling of a dying mind, but some, like the overseer Prime Kethral, listened carefully. Something had killed a skilled commander. Something dangerous. The lockdown lifted with Velthar's death. His command codes died with him. Jiwoo's team rushed to the research lab. Dr. Yuna set charges that would destroy everything. They had 5 minutes to escape. They ran through the corridors. Alarms blared warnings about the explosives. Aliens tried to stop them, but Jiwoo's remaining arrows cleared the path. They reached the water tunnel with seconds to spare. The explosion shook the entire facility as they waded through the tunnel. Water surged around them from the blast pressure, but they kept moving, dragging the wounded, supporting the weak. Taeyang swam alongside Jiwoo, his small head above the water. They emerged into the forest as the facility burned behind them. 20 people had entered. 32 came out, including all the rescued prisoners. But 8 fighters had died in the assault. Among them was Jae-sung. The old archer had taken a plasma blast to the chest, covering their retreat. He died quickly, Jiwoo holding his hand. His last words were, "You have young now, true young. Use it well." They buried their dead in the mountains. Jiwoo stood over Jae-sung's grave for a long time. He had taught her so much in such a short time. She promised to honor his memory, to pass his teachings to others. News of the rescue spread through resistance networks. 32 people freed, a facility destroyed, a commander killed. It proved that the aliens could be beaten. More importantly, Dr. Yuna's information about the Hive network relay nodes gave the resistance a new weapon. Yun-ki recovered slowly. He told Jiwoo about his capture, how he had thought he would die. When she asked why he never gave up hope, he smiled. "Because I knew you were out there. My sister never quits. She never surrenders. I knew if anyone could save me, it would be you. 3 months after the rescue, everything had changed. Jiwoo's method spread across every resistance cell on Earth. Archery units were now standard in guerrilla forces worldwide. The tranquilizer discovery had been weaponized and mass-produced. Humanity was still losing ground, but much slower than before. Jiwoo had become a symbol. Her face appeared on resistance propaganda. Fighters called themselves the Archers of the Mountain. Songs were written about the woman and her honey badger who refused to surrender. She hated the attention but understood its value. Symbols gave people hope. Hope kept them fighting. A woman named Soo-jin arrived at Jiwoo's mountain camp. She was a military engineer who specialized in reverse engineering alien technology. She brought news that changed everything. "General Park wants to see you," Soo-jin said. "She's the highest-ranking military officer still coordinating resistance. She has a command bunker 300 kilometers from here. She specifically requested you." Jiwoo was reluctant. She was a ranger, not a soldier anymore. But Daeun convinced her to go. "You're more than a fighter now," Daeun said. "You're a leader. People follow you. That means something in war." The journey to the command bunker took 2 days through dangerous territory. Soo-jin, Jiwoo, Taeyang, and a small escort made it safely. The bunker was deep underground, hidden in an old mountain mine. Inside, it was a hub of activity: communications, planning, coordination. General Park was in her 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She greeted Jiwoo with respect but not excessive ceremony. Other officers filled the briefing room. Some looked skeptical. A ranger with a bow didn't fit their image of a warrior. Park shut down their skepticism quickly. She displayed casualty reports on a large screen. "Areas using Jiwoo's methods have 5 times the alien kill rate of conventional forces," she stated. "With 1/10 the casualties. These are facts, so I suggest you listen." Park explained the situation. The aliens controlled 60% of Earth's surface. They held major cities and resources, but their advance had completely stalled. They expected to conquer Earth in weeks. Instead, they had been fighting for months with no end in sight. Their supply lines were stretched. Their troops showed signs of low morale. "We're losing," Park admitted, "but slowly. Humanity is making them pay for every meter. We've learned to fight them. Now it's time to do more than survive. It's time to push back." Park proposed a massive coordinated offensive. Every resistance cell on every continent would strike alien command centers simultaneously. If they succeeded in shattering the command structure, the invasion might collapse entirely. It was incredibly risky, but the alternative was slow defeat. "I want you to lead the East Asian operation," Park told Jiwoo. "The target is the regional headquarters. The Overseer Prime for this entire theater operates from there. Taking it down would be a massive blow." Jiwoo hesitated. "I'm not a general. I don't know how to lead large operations." "You know how to win," Park replied. "That's what matters. You'll have experienced officers to handle logistics and tactics, but you'll lead. People follow you. That's leadership." After the briefing, Jiwoo walked outside with Taeyang. The honey badger was older now, with gray in his fur and scars from many battles, but his eyes were still fierce. She scratched his head gently. "What do you think?" she asked him. Taeyang chirped. She smiled. "You're right. We didn't come this far to quit now." Jiwoo accepted the mission. She assembled her team carefully. Daeun would be second in command, handling tactical coordination. Minho, now an excellent archer and scout, would lead reconnaissance. Hyun-ki would manage communications. Soo-jin would provide technical support and handle any alien technology they encountered. 50 elite archers joined them, fighters trained personally by Jiwoo or her students. Each one had killed aliens. Each one understood how to move silently and strike effectively. They were the best humanity had. The alien headquarters was a nightmare to assault. It was a captured military base converted into a fortress. Energy shields protected it from airstrikes. Hundreds of aliens guarded it. Sensors covered every approach. A frontal attack would be suicide. Jiwoo studied the base for a week. She found what she was looking for: old maintenance tunnels that the aliens either didn't know about or thought too small to be useful. They were right about most soldiers. But Jiwoo's team was small and trained to move through tight spaces. Meanwhile, in the headquarters, Overseer Prime Kethral was studying reports. Velthar's final transmission troubled him. He had begun reading human history, their wars, their art, their philosophy. What he found disturbed him deeply. Humans fought harder when losing. They never truly surrendered. Every setback made them more determined. They turned disadvantages into advantages. They bonded with their animals and fought for each other with irrational loyalty. His species had conquered 17 systems before Earth. All surrendered quickly when faced with superior technology. Humans were different, dangerously different. Kethril began to suspect the invasion was a mistake. But he was a soldier. Orders were orders. He would defend his position and hope his superiors came to the same conclusion before too many died. The global offensive began at dawn. Across Earth, resistance forces struck simultaneously. Communications lit up with reports of attacks. Explosions echoed across continents. The aliens, caught by the coordination, struggled to respond. Their command network was overwhelmed. Jiwoo's team entered the maintenance tunnels 2 hours before dawn. Taeyang led, his senses detecting traps and patrols before they became problems. The tunnels were cramped and dark, but they moved efficiently. Years of practice had made them experts at this. They emerged in the power generation level deep inside the base. Sujin immediately went to work on the shield generators. She placed charges at critical points. When detonated, the shields would fail. Air support could then assist them. Jiwoo divided her team into 3 strike groups. Dayun led Team 1 to destroy the communications array. Minho led Team 2 to sabotage the armory. Jiwoo led Team 3 toward the command center where Kethril coordinated the defense. Each team moved through the base like shadows. They encountered resistance, guards, patrols, security systems. But the combination of stealth, archery, and tactical knowledge gave them advantages. Aliens expecting high-tech attacks fell to arrows and blades. Their overconfidence was their weakness. Dayun's team reached the communications array. They fired EMP arrows into the critical systems. Sparks flew. Screens went dark. The aliens lost their ability to coordinate with other bases. They were isolated. Minho's team infiltrated the armory. They planted explosives throughout the ammunition stores and weapon caches. When they detonated, half the base's firepower would be destroyed. Minho had come a long way from the scared teenager Jiwoo first met. He was confident now, skilled, a leader in his own right. Jiwoo reached the command center. Through reinforced windows, she saw Kethril at his command station, overseeing battles across the region. Multiple screens showed human attacks succeeding. The overseer looked troubled, not panicked. He was thinking, analyzing. He sensed her presence and turned. Their eyes met through the window. Kethril stood slowly. Unlike Velthar, he didn't mock or threaten. He simply opened a communication channel. "You are the one they call the Mountain Archer," he said. His voice was calm. "I have read about you. Studied your tactics. You fight with primitive weapons but advanced thinking. You are what I feared." "Then you should have stayed away from our world," Jiwoo replied. "I believe you are correct," Kethril said. "I will propose withdrawal to my superiors. Your species has proven too costly to conquer. We will leave if you cease resistance." "No," Jiwoo said firmly. "You leave because we force you to leave, not because we stop fighting. This is our world. You don't get to bargain for what was never yours." Kethril nodded slowly. "I understand. Then we are at war until one of us falls." The conversation ended when Taeyang attacked. The honey badger had been circling around while they talked. He went straight for Kethril's guards, his old body still fierce and unstoppable. The guards tried to shoot him, but Taeyang was too fast, too low, too vicious. Jiwoo's team breached the command center. A battle erupted. Arrows against plasma weapons, human determination against alien technology. Jiwoo fired continuously, each arrow finding a target. Her team moved with practiced efficiency, covering each other, advancing steadily. Sujin detonated the charges on the shield generators. The explosion rocked the entire base. The energy shields flickered and died. Above them, human aircraft that had been waiting broke through the defenses. Missiles struck key targets. The base shook with impacts. Kethril realized his position was lost. He activated the base self-destruct sequence. If he couldn't win, he would deny the humans their victory. 10 minutes until total destruction. Evacuate, Jiwoo shouted to her team. "Everyone out now!" They ran through collapsing corridors. Explosions chased them. Kethril personally pursued Jiwoo, determined to kill her before the end. In the chaos, they faced each other in a burning hallway. The overseer was wounded but still dangerous. Jiwoo was exhausted, nearly out of arrows. Kethril raised his weapon to fire. Then Taeyang appeared one last time. The old honey badger launched himself at the alien's neck with every bit of strength he had left. Part 5. 6 months after the Great Offensive, Earth was healing. Slowly, painfully, but healing. The aliens had withdrawn their ground forces to their ships in orbit. Negotiations were happening through neutral intermediaries. The war wasn't over, but the fighting had mostly stopped. Jiwoo had returned to her mountains. The Resistance built her a new station to replace the one destroyed in the invasion's first days. But she insisted it remain simple. Just a cabin, a practice range, and space for the animals she cared for. She didn't want monuments or medals. She wanted peace. Taeyang recovered from his injuries, but age had caught up with him. He was slower now, his fur more gray than brown. He spent most days resting on his favorite rock, watching Jiwoo practice archery. Sometimes he would chirp encouragement. Sometimes he just watched in comfortable silence. Their bond had only grown stronger through the war. Something unexpected lived at the station now. During the final battle at the headquarters, a single alien had been separated from the Hive network. Cut off from the collective consciousness, it developed something the others lacked: individuality. It chose to stay on Earth rather than return to its species. It called itself Observer. The name came from its primary activity: watching and learning about humans. Jiwoo had been suspicious at first, but Observer proved genuinely curious and peaceful. It was particularly fascinated by the relationship between Jiwoo and Taeyang. "I am trying to understand," Observer would say in its clicking translated speech. "My species conquers through technology. Yours survives through adaptation, but this bond with animals, this I cannot quantify. It is not logical, yet it is powerful. It may be your true weapon." Jiwoo found Observer's presence oddly comforting. It represented something important: the possibility that even enemies could change, learn, grow. If one alien could choose peace, perhaps others could too. Perhaps the war truly could end. General Park visited one morning, arriving by helicopter. She brought news from the ongoing negotiations. The aliens had agreed to withdraw completely from Earth's system. They would pay reparations and share technology as compensation for the damage. In exchange, humanity agreed not to pursue them or seek revenge. "It's not perfect," Park admitted, sitting with Jiwoo at the practice range. "Millions died. Cities are destroyed. Families are broken. But we survived. We won. That's more than anyone thought possible when this started." Park also brought a request from the government. They wanted to build monuments and museums commemorating the resistance. They wanted Jiwoo to be the centerpiece, the face of humanity's victory. Statues, exhibits, speaking tours. Jiwoo refused immediately. "I didn't fight for glory. I fought to protect what I loved. My home, my animals, my brother. That's all. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who refused to give up." "That's exactly what makes you a hero," Park replied gently. "But I understand. I'll tell them you declined. Though I can't stop people from remembering you their own way." After Park left, Jiwoo walked through the forest with Taeyang. The honey badger moved slowly but happily, sniffing at familiar trees and rocks. This was his home too. They had protected it together. That was victory enough. Hyun-Ki visited regularly now. He had taken a job helping rebuild communication networks across Asia. The work was hard but important. He brought stories of recovery, cities being rebuilt, refugees returning home, children going back to school. Life was returning to normal, or at least a new version of normal. "You should come to Seoul," Hyun-Ki said during one visit. "See how people are rebuilding. You inspired so many of them. They want to thank you." "I'm not good with crowds," Jiwoo replied. "Besides, someone needs to stay here. The mountains still need a ranger." Hyun-Ki smiled. "You haven't changed. Even after everything, you're still the same person who ran away to these mountains." "Not exactly the same," Jiwoo said, looking at Taeyang. "I found a reason to fight again. That changed me." Daeun had joined the new Earth Defense Force, training soldiers in combined tactics. She mixed ancient and modern warfare, teaching that technology wasn't everything. Spirit, determination, and adaptability mattered just as much. She credited Jiwoo with teaching her that lesson. She visited the mountain station often, trying to recruit Jiwoo. "The Defense Force needs you," she would say. "Your experience, your skills. You could shape how we defend Earth for generations." Each time, Jiwoo declined politely. "I've done my fighting. Now I want to help things grow, not train for the next war. If Earth needs me again, I'll be here. But I hope it never does." Minho had become an archery instructor, teaching young people across the region. He traveled from village to village, sharing the skills Jiwoo taught him. But he always emphasized more than just technique. He taught patience, focus, respect for the weapon, and the responsibility that came with being able to hurt others. He returned to Jiwoo's station regularly for additional training. Though he was skilled now, he still saw her as his teacher. He told her stories about his students, their progress, their struggles, their victories. Through his teaching, Jiwoo's legacy spread wider than any monument could achieve. The aliens completed their withdrawal on a cold winter morning. Their ships left orbit in formation, disappearing into the vastness of space. People across Earth watched the sky, some celebrating, some crying, most feeling a mixture of relief and lingering fear. Jiwoo watched from her mountain. Taeyang sat beside her, wrapped in a blanket against the cold. They saw the lights in the sky fade away. It was over. Truly over. Observer stood with them. The alien had been transmitting reports to its former species about what it learned. Before the ships left, a message came back. The alien leadership acknowledged their mistake. Earth would be marked as protected space. No other species in their network would be allowed to attack humanity. It wasn't an apology, but it was recognition. Your species will be remembered, Observer said. Not as primitives we conquered, but as apex survivors we could not defeat. Some call it shame. I call it respect. Will you stay? Jiwoo asked. If you permit it, Observer replied. I have much yet to learn. And I find I prefer individual thought to collective purpose. Perhaps that makes me human in some way. Jiwoo smiled. You can stay. The days settled into a new rhythm. Jiwoo resumed her work as a ranger, caring for injured animals. Tourists occasionally made the long journey to see her, hoping for stories or wisdom. She accommodated them politely but briefly. She had no interest in being a celebrity. Children from nearby villages came to learn archery. Jiwoo taught them, passing on what Jae-sung had taught her. Not just the physical skills, but the mental discipline. The young, the rightness of purpose and action. Some understood immediately. Others struggled but persisted. All of them learned that size and strength weren't everything. Will and skill could overcome seemingly impossible odds. One morning, Jiwoo stood at her practice range as the sun rose. Taeyang watched from his rock, old and tired but content. Observer was recording notes about human morning rituals. The mountain was peaceful. Birds sang. Wind rustled through trees. It was perfect. Jiwoo raised her bow, feeling the familiar weight. She drew back the arrow, breathed slowly, and felt the yang that Jae-sung taught her. The connection between archer, arrow, and target. She released. The arrow flew true, striking the center with a satisfying sound. Taeyang chirped his approval, just like he had that first morning when the sky tore open and war came. Back then, Jiwoo was just practicing. Now she was remembering. Remembering friends lost, lessons learned, battles won, the cost of survival. She had been a soldier who ran from war. Then war found her anyway. She fought with ancient weapons against advanced technology. She fought for a honey badger, for her brother, for her mountains, for her world. And somehow, impossibly, she won. But victory came with a price. Friends dead, innocence lost. Years she could never get back. Was it worth it? She looked at Taeyang, at the mountain she protected, at the students she taught. Yes, it was worth it. Every arrow, every sacrifice, every moment of fear and pain. Because Earth was still free, humanity still stood. That was worth everything. Observer approached quietly. I have a question I have not dared to ask, it said. Why did you fight? You could have hidden, survived, stayed safe. Why risk everything? Jiwoo considered the question carefully. Because someone had to. Because running away didn't work before and it wouldn't work this time. Because I loved things worth fighting for. And because... She looked at Taeyang, who looked back with understanding in his eyes. Because he wouldn't give up. How could I do less than a honey badger? Observer processed this. You fought for love. For loyalty. For irrational emotional attachments. This is what my species could not understand. This is why we lost. Maybe, Jiwoo said. Or maybe we just refused to accept that size and technology decide everything. Sometimes determination matters more. Sometimes being small and stubborn is enough. The sun continued rising, painting the mountains in shades of gold and orange. Somewhere in the valley, children were waking up for school. In cities, people were rebuilding. Across the planet, humanity was recovering. adapting, moving forward. They had survived. They had won. And life continued. Jiwoo collected her arrows from the target. Taeyang climbed down from his rock slowly, joints stiff with age.